Hello everyone! Welcome to this week's Campfire. We are returning to Dota this week as we took a break from Dota for the past 2 weeks. This week I'm RoyalAmes, of course, and this week we have Scant and PimpmuckL joining us to talk about some production and Shanghai, which happened not too long ago, which we all know how that went. So if you guys would like to,
Very well.
I don't know, introduce yourselves, give a random plug to start the show off, not sure.
Hey, I'm Pimp. I rant about shit. That's me.
I'm Scans. I don't rant about that. This is actually, you know what? This is gonna be one of my talking points about production
This is
at the
so not
Shanghai
true.
Major. I mean, I do like criticize stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not like. I mean, I don't know if this is gonna jump ahead on your planned schedule, but I feel like one of the unspoken about issues of the Shanghai Major is that the talent spent a lot of time tweeting issues. I think that's a thing that shouldn't happen, and the tournament would be a lot better if it didn't. I mean, obviously, there's unacceptable production problems that shouldn't happen, and they have to be addressed, and those should be complained about. But by the end of the event, you get people saying the Dota's been so great, too bad it's overshadowed by all these problems. And actually, the only reason it's overshadowed by those problems is because everyone's tweeting about those problems. If there were just some stream issues, sure, people will complain about that, but the vast majority of the information that the wider audience has about issues at the major come from talent actually just kind of indulging. I mean, the players didn't have that many issues. Players had
I don't know, dude. Did you? Come on, man. The swindle story. What? There
what are you
is.
talking about? That's after the
mean-
major.
Yeah, sure, but still, even at the major, Swindle was opening a whole book of stuff that he didn't like or which was just wrong, like the booth or some stuff like this. I think the problem is actually why Talon tweeted that. Usually Talon doesn't tweet shit, right? At an event, you're so caught up anyway that you don't tweet anything at all, except I'm casting the game and I'm on the panel, and that's it, right? Because usually events run pretty well. Now the problem is and why I think some talent did tweet that because they felt a responsibility towards the community or maybe towards their own brand. Because as soon as there is so much shit happening that your own brand gets completely dragged down as well, I think there is some justification of trying to at least I don't want to say harp on the organizer because that's pretty bad because it drags the product down, like you said, Scans. But at the same time, you kind of want to protect your own brand from the whole fuck ups which are happening. For example, when there is K-pop and Rob who were brought in to interface with production, and then nothing works, then they kind of get dragged down a lot because everyone's like, hey, you guys are there, why the fuck are you not working? That's I think that's the issue that talent had in a way. But I can only expect it. I don't know if this is all speculation, of course, but this is something I could definitely get behind.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not K-pop and Rob who are tweeting. That's
Correct.
Yeah.
That's true.
This is I think you're exactly right that it's sort of about people protecting their own brands or whatever, and I think that goes a long way to explaining what happened with James and the firing as well. My personal view is that when you sign on to work for a tournament, your brand should take a very secondary, even tertiary position, and you're there for the tournament, for the brand of the tournament. You're there to create a good Shanghai major for Valve, and who you are and what your fans want to see is an entirely secondary thing, and I don't think that should be a focus. And I think one way to improve a tournament is, I think that you'd probably find that there's a lot of professional sporting events that have big issues that nobody hears about, and that actually improves the overall impression of the event publicly. I think I know for a fact that there's events that happen at universities. That's a context I've worked in, and Magic the Gathering tournaments. That's a game I played competitively, and there's issues which they sort of come out eventually after the event. But for people involved in working on the event to vocally complain over and over about, I mean, it's a weird thing because it's not like I'm firing shots at those people who are doing it at the event. I was kind of sitting with people laughing about when they did it, and I got on well with most of the talent. But at the same time, I do think when you get to the end of the tournament and the same people are saying, what a pity that the Great Dota was overshadowed by all these problems, there's something rich about saying that, because the overshadowing happens in large part because of what you've done. That's what I think. So if really what you want is the Dota to be the central point, you can do like you can choose to tweet about the Dota. You can choose to tweet about the Dota and talk to Bruno or talk to Valve about the issues and later on tell your story. But if during the tournament your focus is going to be like, there's all these problems, where, then don't complain later on when you see that people are like mostly talking about those issues and not about the Dota.
So it's
I think
like, yeah, like
Oh,
when
sorry.
you're drawing attention to all of the little, like, obviously we all knew about the bigger problems that were happening just from them being very large problems, but just like drawing attention to all the smaller problems kind of drew attention away from the Dota. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff that should come out. So there was like an issue at the booths. I don't know if this like was on Reddit or something. It probably was because like the one
Yeah,
booth was like literally poisoning the players for a while. It was like stuck together with like some really shitty glue, and the glue was like emitting toxic fumes, and that's why Eternal Envy was complaining about his eyes the whole time because like there was like this like poisonous glue vapors in the booth, which eventually got fixed. And that's like such a serious problem that I feel like that's something that I would even maybe consider tweeting about. But to like go on every single day, like multiple people on every little detail, that shapes the narrative to be about the issues and not be about the Dota. And then if we if we've decided we want the narrative to be mostly about the Dota, we can make it about the Dota. That's what I think. So I mean personally I think that I'll have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure that my tweets, there weren't that many of them during the tournament, but I think they were all about the Dota. I think they were about like teams and like why this team's doing well, that team's doing badly or something. And
Sure.
I think, yeah, I mean it's like I'm not saying one way is wrong or the other way is right. Like the point the thing I'm trying to point to is the kind of consistency of it. It's like maybe you want to tweet about all the problems all the time during the event, but then you shouldn't be complaining at the end of the event that the public perception of the event is that it's just about problems and not about Dota, because it's within your power to actually shape that perception, to shape that narrative. That's what I think.
Sure, but still, like even as a viewer, like you watch the show and then there is mics not working, then there is audio not working, then there is like endless delays. It doesn't take a tweet from a personality who says there is issue because there is a guy who got fired or something, as opposed to I can see that something isn't working, therefore there must be something wrong. So yes, you have a difference in more information as a viewer, and you can like I don't know, assess the situation a different way, but you would still have seen a lot of things, like I want to say like at least like 2/3 of all the shit that actually went wrong as a viewer, as a rookie viewer, as a casual viewer, because you're used to actually good esports, and that wasn't good esports productions in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean you're right, but it's different.
I mean, I totally agree with you with the hypocrisy. Like, talent could have handled it another way, but I don't really fault the talent in this massive of a letdown of a tournament.
I mean, I'm gonna jump in really quick. I also think that from a lot of the tweets that I saw from the talent, which I didn't see a lot of them because I didn't stay up every day, but a lot of them seemed responsive to the things that were very obvious, like, oh, why is there a delay? Because this went wrong on stage. So, I mean, to me, it was kind of I understand that, like, I agree that, like, sometimes tweeting about the problems can just, like, take attention away from the Dota, but I also agree with that a lot of it was very apparent, and to me, a lot of those tweets were just responding to the apparent problems rather than, at least from the talent.
Yeah, I mean I think some of them were. I don't know if I agree that a lot of them were. I think a lot of them were kind of just like, we got to a point where people were like, this event's like kind of like all over the place, it's hilarious, and there was just a mood and a culture of like you see something crazy or funny and you tweet it. And I mean to go back to what JJ was saying, I do agree that either way there's gonna be like tons of Reddit threads, people saying this event's terrible, the stream sucks, whatever. But there's a difference between like doing that and not getting interaction from the people at the event, and then like either you just stop watching because you hate it, or you just go back to watching and it's about the Dota again. But what happens is when there's like new ammunition for you every day, there's like 6 different new tweets, you can make like new Reddit threads, and it kind of like keeps the momentum going with the conversation is mostly about the event sucking rather than the conversation is mostly about the Dota. I think like in a parallel universe, it's possible for there to be a lot of complaints about this event on Reddit or whatever, but the dominant narrative could still have been about the Dota. I think that could have happened. I mean, maybe that's asking too much from a community that's not actually usually very responsible, But I feel like, I mean, this is a conversation I had with a lot of the talent at the event. I feel like right now in the way the ecosystem works in Dota 2, there's two broad power bases. There's the community and there's Valve, and both of them are actually kind of like scatterbrained. Valve have like internal disagreements. Not everyone agrees on what they want to do when, and the community is even more so. It's like millions of people all over the world change their mind all the time, bandwagon this or that, and I think that the talent actually have a lot of power to like be a bridge between the two and to inform the narrative in both senses. The talent can put pressure and make demands of Valve, and they can also shape the way that the community behaves. Not just the talent, the players as well. Like you'll find that depending on what Synderen says something in a cast, then suddenly like in the next week you'll see people posting similar thoughts on Reddit, like as if it had occurred to them in the middle of the night that this is an interesting thing, or like. And similarly, if a player like if Eternal Envy goes and calls someone out, suddenly all of Reddit wants to call that person out. It's like, so there's if talents and players are more responsible with the power and influence they have, then I definitely think there's a lot of potential to shape the way things look, the perception of things, and the way that narratives develop at events.
Yeah, there is a lot of like bandwagoning that happens, especially with flaming things like production or people or things like that. Do you think this topic has come up multiple times? At least I have heard it come up multiple times before about players and talent not fully being aware of the influence they have when they tweet something. Do you think this is something that should be addressed more?
Oh man, just think about this for a second. You have like some casters who have like 100k followers, and they tweet some random ass shit. Of course, it's gonna look bad on you. That's without a question. I had the same issues. Like I'm way small, and I tweet dumb shit all the time, and I constantly get shit for that. Like it's, of course, people would actually have to get some social media training in a way that it's very apparent that a lot of people in the industry don't know how to actually properly use social media for their brand, for the brand of the studio, for the brand of the tournament. But in this case, not knowing how much power they have, I think they know. It's more like deliberately not choosing to think about this for a second and just like being super frustrated and just pushing it out and venting in a way. Because you can't vent, like, how are you supposed to vent at an event otherwise? Like, do you want to go to your producer and tell him like you're shit? That's not gonna work. Definitely not when he speaks Chinese. I don't know. I think it's just like a reaction out of like a final thing where like you can't do anything else and you just rant and that's about it. And you try to feel better or something. Of course it's wrong, but it's hard to not do it. Like it's hard to not be an idiot sometimes when everything is just going like shit.
I mean, it's a symptom of a much bigger problem in the industry, which I see as like there's a lot of money came into Dota really quickly, and other esports as well. And the money came a lot faster than everything else did. And so, in terms of like professional standards, everything's catching up. Like right now, we've got a situation where players have like extraordinary power, and like no, everyone else just has to like adapt or die. Like the media's got no power. The players' managers in most cases have no power. Like if a player wants to tweet something, if a Dota player wants to tweet something, and their manager says no, you can't tweet that, they still tweet it, and like what's going to happen? Nothing. Like compared to like any kind of professional sports, it's unheard of, right? You're under contract, and you tweet something that your manager says you can't tweet, you're not playing the next game, or you're fined, or I mean, I'm like a big European football fan. I'm a big fan of Arsenal, and we've had many times where like players get into trouble just for like arguing with the manager, or like this guy smoked a cigarette one time, and like you're a professional athlete, so you're not meant to smoke cigarettes, and those sorts of things, those kinds of standards and like pre-existing norms of like how a professional industry works, a lot of those things are catching up over time, and so we're like filling in the gaps as we go. Whereas normally the money only comes like gradually over time as the industry builds itself up, and we had a different situation here because all the money poured in from like crowdfunding with TIs initially. It's just like it's there, and now people need to figure out what does it mean for this to be like a super serious professional industry. Like what are the norms and standards we should expect in various parts of the industry and for various actors in the industry.
Sure, and that kind of brings us. Oh, I'm sorry. That brings us to the general idea for today's topic, which is how, as esports grows and becomes more and more, I guess I don't want to use mainstream because that's not the quite word. So basically, as esports grows, how will it have to change and adapt, and how are people's expectations changing as it becomes bigger?
I just want to say we just had a 50-minute intro. Good stuff.
Was that all
How,
the intro?
I
I
mean,
mean, it was like
we
it was
got
like
on
the
a.
first question. No, I don't know. This is gonna be a long show, guys. Um, I think it's really interesting to see what different people think where the industry should be going and where it actually is going. Because as we just saw at the major, there's a very different approach from some people like James or some people who are more laid back or have a very different view of the whole scene compared to some others, namely Valve. And this clashing, I think, is what's going to define most of 2016, 2017, not only in Dota, but in esports in general. We see on the one hand Riot Games with LCS, which have pretty much pushed the whole LCS circuit in a very sports-based fashion, very professional, really good production all the way, like a circuit, games, like consistent games, consistent schedule. On the other hand, we have Dota, where there's like no real consistency in the same way as Riot has, and no same control, or like franchises dominate and everything. In Dota, it's the players, like it's a completely different mindset. I don't think we're gonna see a real like set winner in the same way, where it's like in 10 years someone's going to say, well, this is where esports went. It went into this. I think it's just going to be pretty interesting how the games differently develop. And I think Dota's still going to have like this quote unquote open circuit. I don't know if you guys saw the Thorin video about like open circuit in Counter-Strike and Dota and League. But that's pretty much what he said. Like he went and was like, hell, this is like tennis with a minus in the majors, and this is how it should be done. And that's what we kind of see in Dota right now, or in Counter-Strike, which are pretty similar in systems. And I don't know if professional is really where we want to go. We want to keep it fun and want to keep it entertaining. I think most of it, and that means, of course, people are going to like suit up at the panel. Sure, fine, that's totally okay. But people aren't going to have a stick up their ass and just like be super, like I don't know how to put it, like be super strict in anything. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're still going to like have some character to it.
I mean,
Yes.
I would
Go
want to
ahead.
go back. Sorry, I would want to go back to what you said before, Tiffany, about like people not realizing their power, but in a different context, which is like, for me, the question that everyone keeps like, you ask the question of where's the industry going, and for me, it's like, where do we want it to go? Because people, there's this weird notion that the industry is like some big massive stuff that's just gonna like of its own accord go somewhere. And actually, like, there's so many people who have power to just dictate where it goes, and it's about like realizing you have the power to do that and taking initiative and doing things. I mean, Pimp should be a good example of this, because when you're involved in production stuff, you come with like a new technique or something, and suddenly everyone's using it, right? I don't know. I think you're one of the first people like doing the obs script stuff, and then not everyone who obs does that, for example. And K-pop, when he came up with like fight recaps, and then fight recap is added to the game. So a lot of stuff, how the industry works, if like players and talents and people involved in the industry, even just random community members, if they like know the right things to do and say, get involved, again, this is like, we can shape the way the industry develops. So, if we decide this is the way we want it to go, we can. Personally, this is my thing. Like, all of the stuff I write at the moment, and this is, we're joking before we went live, like, Pimp found it funny that I was saying that I don't rant or whatever, and I think this is what he was referring to. Like, all the stuff I write is very critical of things that I think are problems in the industry. And that's because I've made a decision that I actively want, like, this is an industry I want to work in, and as a result, I'm invested in it, and I want it to be a certain way, and so I'm going to try and like use whatever power I have and whatever influence I may have. And ultimately, it's not even about power influence in my case. I'm writing articles and hoping that like intelligent people will read them and be like, hey, that makes sense. That's a good idea. We should do this. And there's smaller ways where you can have influences. Like when I was at the major, there was sometimes I could come up with an idea, we'd do it. Like that MVP thing we started doing, that was like basically my only idea in the whole production thing. But anyway, there's bigger things as well. There's like, if you want so I'm currently writing an article that's gonna be posted tomorrow about coaching, and I think coaching is something that's like not talked about enough and not emphasized enough. And obviously, right now a lot of people are talking about it, but I think it should be a mainstay. It should be like moving forward. Teams need to be making more efforts to get coaches. And the argument people make is like, oh well, there's not enough people we'd respect to coach us, and I just think that's lazy, because even if like maybe you can't get a current or ex-professional player to be your coach to do your draft for you like Balber, but you could get some kind of coaching staff that'll help you in some way. and Valve are like paying to give you that person come to the event. So you just need to settle some salary with them. In many cases, you probably don't even have to give salary. People would just come for free because it's a free event, and like if it's good, then you'll pay them next time. Now, this kind of thing, this is a decision that teams can just make. Like tomorrow, every team that's well, not tomorrow. Once we know which teams are going to the Manila Major, all those teams could decide to have coaches, and then suddenly coaches will be a mainstream thing. But currently, it's still like a minority of teams that have coaches, and that's all it takes is a decision from teams to be like, hey, this is something we want to look into. We want to try people out. And obviously, it is true. There aren't enough people that are like proven to be that useful. And so maybe initially a lot of coaches will be a flop and some others will be successful. But I mean, I'm going on a tangent now. My point was just that this is one way and there's many other ways that people can just literally decide which way the industry develops.
But coaching is a very short-term thing, right? Because we saw Modpacks doing tons of analysis work and like some sort of draft coaching for complexity at TI. He did it in this major again. He did it in Frankfurt. Like lots of different like stats people in general had like incredible like stats bibles for some teams prepared for TI and for the majors as well. So I don't think this is really like a long-term thing. I think coaching is going to come like super soon. I think Manila is going to have the majority of Western teams is going to have a coach. I see no way this is not going to happen. Like you have team digital coaches pretty much, right? I mean, you have Theben, you have Bulba. Those guys are both in a final as coaches in the last major.
Well,
this is like
they're hoping to qualify. Impressive. I mean, they're hoping to play there, though, right?
I mean, of course they're going to qualify because they're just going to import some more players. I mean, this is what DC does, right? I mean, they just import Resolution, import some other guy. Oh, whatever, guys. I mean, like they have some really crazy. Like they're gonna have a real cool player lined up. I'm just gonna say that it blew my mind. So of course they're not gonna be there to coach, but teams they went there and they acknowledged that Bulba is a god tier coach. EG had him at TI, EG had him again. It worked. Liquid was in the final. Coach, yeah, most likely like a big issue or like a big reason behind that. It was pretty amazing, honestly. Like it was pretty cool, and I don't think the industry is as like close-minded as you might think. I think the industry is definitely gonna see the value of a coach.
Well, the problem let's put it this way: why do we need? Sorry, the point I'm trying to make is why do we need the two finalists of the Shanghai Major to have coaches before that happened? Like we've been in a position for a long time where Valve said we'll pay for 7 people to come to the event. There's 5 playing in your team. You have a manager, you have a coach, right? But what teams usually do is they bring a friend or a girlfriend or a partner or, like some other person they want to come with them. Now, if you're really completely serious about the game, like honestly, if you're really completely serious about the game and you want to do absolutely anything, like see it as your real job, do everything to win, do that like this is something that like should have been obvious from the beginning. And there's been this kind of cop-out excuse all the time. Oh, there's like no one we'd respect. And I just think it's like, okay, well then don't get someone who's going to be like your dictator or your leader. Just get someone who can look things up for you if you ask them, or get someone who's going to help with the mood, or get someone who's going to like theory craft or just chat to people. I mean, there's so many different uses you could have for an extra person, which isn't just like someone's friend or partner. Really, I'm not disagreeing with you that much. Like, I do think it's going to be a thing quite soon. My point is just like it is, I think, an example of where like if teams or players or people in the industry just decide this must be a thing, tomorrow it can be a thing. So we don't need to like. I don't think we need to ask so much where's the industry going as much as like where do we want it to go. That's really the point to make.
No, definitely. Like I totally agree. I think the only thing is that so far pros had quote unquote too much power in a way that they could like you said just be like, well, we don't respect this guy you kind of offer us as coach, so we don't want a coach. Like that's the wrong answer. The right answer would be we don't want this guy's coach, we want another guy's coach. And if the franchise would have more power, which they currently don't have in the Dota ecosystem, of course, it would be a different thing. That being said, a lot of franchises still rep the players off, so I can't really fault that at all. But whatever, that's a whole different topic of discussion about franchises.
So in talking about how the community has this power, or people in the community have the power to direct how the scene grows, I know oh my god, I'm dying, I'm sorry. I know that Pimp, you mentioned earlier about LCS and how League has a very structured, very, very structured system. And a lot of that comes from Riot having a lot of direct control over what goes on with League. And I think that one of the things, I mean, I personally like about the Dota scene is the fact that we do, the community has the power to shift the way the scene grows. Do you think that in order to get to the point where we are more organized, Valve will have to step in more, or do you think we can preserve that?
No, Valve has already stepped in much more than I ever anticipated. The major system is already showing how little tournament organizers now do. Like, think about last summer. It was packed with tons of tournaments. There was like this whole clash with ESL Frankfurt and stuff. This is just not happening anymore because there's so little time. Like, think about it. You have 1 week for each major, where there's the major qualifiers completely blocked off. This is like, just look at the DreamHack schedule, right? There's like this 2-week gap for the major qualifiers because no one's going to want to play Dream League or any tournament for that matter, because there's a freaking $3 million tournament qualifier coming up. So this is pretty much like a week and then another week of usually boot camping on just preparing strats and stuff. So there's already 2 weeks for each major blocked out, and then there's another 2 weeks of actual major time because you want to fly in, settle down for a day or two, play group stages, have main event, and that usually takes around 2 weeks in Frankfurt at least. That was incredible. Like, just think about this for a second. So you have already like 4 weeks each major blocked off, and that's another 3 months just straight up blocked off of the whole year of the whole ecosystem. So every other tournament is going to be like pretty hard pressed to find a date, and like, I don't know. It's definitely enough what Valve is doing right now, in my opinion. At least we're gonna have to sit back and see how the whole year goes. Like, after TI, there's gonna be definitely maybe more incentive for tournament organizers if they rework the workshop on Valve's side, because it's currently really bad, like objectively bad. Maybe this is gonna help like smaller tournament organizers, or like these 50K tournaments like D2CL or something, maybe to like run an event for like a month or something. But you can't really run these month-long events anymore because it just doesn't work, because you're gonna have like a major shuffle between this event or something. It's just it's pretty rough right now for some tournament organizers. At the same time, I think what Valve is doing so far is great. I mean, it gives much more stability, except for like the NA scene and stuff. But that's NA, and they had great results in the last major, so maybe it's gonna settle down eventually. I think it's honestly like enough. Like, LCS is garbage. LCS is hindering growth. LCS is hindering players. LCS is hindering talent. We should not go to an LCS system whatsoever.
I totally agree. The more that I've learned about LCS, the more that I've appreciated the way the Dota scene runs, honestly.
I don't think we should go to LCS system, but I think I don't know, at least in principle, like, I was really happy about the introduction of the major system. And I think that for Valve to do a bit more in terms of, I mean, they've already said they're going to be more directly involved in the majors, for example. I think at some points, this is like an idea that maybe wouldn't be popular because most people don't care, but at some point, if they organized like some kind of developmental circuit, that would be nice. Like, I know you talked about there being like open and closed, but this is a different point. This is like a Valve sponsored event, which is for like teams that come from developing scenes. I think that would be something nice to complement the existing system. But mostly, I think that what Valve could do more, and hopefully will do more, is like transparency. I think moving forward they probably will, but like, we should have a system where all the teams that are automatically invited to the next major based on the results from this major already know that they are. You won't find any sporting events in the world where there's auto birthing of teams to one event and they don't know what the criteria are. So that kind of thing is just like, and I do think they're sort of moving towards that, trying to figure their way out. And at least for recent, for like TI5 and for the last 2 majors, it's been easier for me to try and figure out what their thinking was for the invites than for the previous TIs. It was kind of like they're doing whatever they want. So I think we are headed that direction, but I think we need to get there sooner rather than later. Have like sort of transparent, this is how things work.
I agree. I think the way they do it this in Counter-Strike is a pretty good idea in a way. Like, as long as you keep 3 out of the 5 players who were top 8 at a major, you're gonna retain your spot. That's pretty cool. So far, the like worst case scenario where like you have a breakup between like 2 teams and 3, like you have so you have like 2 teams, and then out of these 2 teams, 10 players who kind of have these valid claims to the spots. There's 3 teams forming instead of 2. Like, this could be like a big issue, but then you just like play some tiebreakers, some shit, whatever. So I don't think it's perfect in a way that it should be in Dota, because somehow Valve thinks Dota needs to be way more stable than Counter-Strike. But the whole idea that you go out of the major, you make it from the group stage, and you know you're going to be at the next one is already such a big relief. For like, best example would be Luminosity. You know, there was a Brazilian team. They barely made it to a major qualifier because a guy of Flusher, who was playing in the best team in the world at that time, he kind of sponsored them in a way. And then they qualified for the major, and they got top 8, and suddenly they're a top 3 team in the world. This sort of story is amazing. You know. Are we going to have the same in Dota? I don't know. I like this whole 3 out of 5 approach because it still encourages consistency, but not too much. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe Valve's just trying out stuff, which they have been doing a lot. So yeah, I think it's going to be fine, honestly. I think after TI, there's going to be like one rule book. Well, hopefully there's going to be like one rule book from Valve, and then everyone's like, all right, these are the rules. Wonderful. Now we can play the game.
Yeah, for sure. So after what happened at Shanghai, do you think anything is going to change in how Manila is run from Valve's side?
After what happened, I like that it's like you just gesture generally, like after what happened.
I mean, guys, you were there. Was there anything apparent for Talent? Because I wasn't. You know, was there Bruno running around being mad and like screaming at people?
Like there were lots of problems. Honestly, there were. So like honestly, I don't know how to start with. Valve thought that a only Chinese-speaking production team could coordinate with like only English-speaking talent, and like we had Bonnie there as a translator to start with, and almost immediately she became the director and just luckily for us, Bonnie actually has some like production experience working for some talk show, and so she kind of knew like the things you do in production, and she could speak both languages. And if that wasn't the case, we would have been in a lot of trouble because it's just like that kind of thing. I just don't understand how no one saw in advance that, hey, T-Dog and his team at KeyTV only speak Chinese, and James, etc., only speak English. And so for me, that was like one of the more fundamental issues. There were obviously technical issues, and I don't understand why. I've been to 2 LANs now, and Starladder didn't have the kind of issues that the major had, but it was also the case at Starladder that the setup of the stage was very last minute. It was very like, are we going to make it on time? Is it going to be fully built before the teams have to actually be in there? That kind of setup stuff in LANs in South Africa, like we're a very developing scene, but this is like a perfectly normal thing. Every LAN I go to, there's problems. But I feel like when you're at an event that's got like millions of dollars in it, there shouldn't be problems like, hey, stuff isn't set up on time or stuff isn't tested on time. You should have people there early, like testing the internet and testing the Wi-Fi and testing the power and setting stuff up. And so those kinds of basic things which should be checked in advance hopefully will be checked in advance, and that's something that will be done. I mean, it's something that Valve have done for a very long time. They're part of their approach as a company is they like just experiment and try stuff out and then learn from it. So I do expect that they wouldn't make a lot of the same mistakes with the Manila majors, what they did with the Shanghai major. There was some weird stuff, by the way. I don't know. There was like right at the start of the main event. I don't know if you guys were watching the stream. There was like the stream had like it sounded like machine gun fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. It was Elementary,
okay. Right? So like how they fixed that. This is like it's like I think Wepas almost quit his job that day because he was like they came into the production room, the Mars TV. This was Mars TV now, not Key TV, and they told us they've dealt with this issue before. The way to fix this problem with like these random sounds happening is that you have to change the resolution on the OBS PC. And we're all like how would changing resolution fix a sound issue? And they're like, no, trust me, that's. And Wepas was like losing his shit. He was like, this is just the stupidest thing ever. I'm not working it. Like, and actually, eventually, like our situation was like, we're like, okay, well, they say it's gonna work. Let's just see. There's nothing to lose. And actually, the issue never happened again after they changed the resolution. So I don't. Maybe someone could like figure out, like reverse engineer why that would be a thing. But like literally, that is what they did to fix that issue. They changed the resolution, and so, like, and this. So like a lot of those issues, I think there were maybe things lost in translation in terms of technical terms. And a lot of the translators I'd ask, can you just check that we understand what they're saying? Because we'd want multiple translators to do a translation just to be totally sure. But a lot of the translators were like, I'm not actually sure about the technical terms. And so it actually put Barney in a very special position where she like did know the technical terms, but at the same time, a lot of the time Bonnie would be like actually doing the directing stuff, like actually coordinating the stream, and she's not able then to troubleshoot with us while she's doing that, and so we need someone else. And this was, I mean, one of my pet peeves was there were people on the production team who like didn't know what Dota is, and I don't know if this is like a normal thing for events, but like there were people there who had like done League events or done Counter or like other different games, but so we'd have like a Dota TV problem, and then they'd be like, well, what the hell is Dota TV? Like the games that I've worked on don't have a system like this. I don't understand, like, because Dota TV works in like specific ways in terms of like sending the audio through the mixer and into the stream, whatever, and it's apparently different to any other game. But
Yeah,
again, this is one of those like preparation things. Like you need to check this in advance. There's like, you should have like a week where someone's just going through a list of things before the event, making sure like, yep, this is sorted. Yep, this is sorted. Yes, we've got that. Yes, this person knows how that thing works. So those are the kind of basic things that I think Valve probably will and should do for the next major.
Okay, just to make this very clear, I know for a fact that PGL is gonna run some dry testing for this major. Like I know that for a fact. So this is not gonna happen again. Like, I'm just saying. I know, like people know I'm super critical of like everyone working in the industry, right? Because I just can't wrap my head around when like some people who get paid a lot of money don't show any basic like work ethics, as in you have an event coming up. Like you said, you should make sure that your shit works, and you should at least, give whatever game you're producing like a small look and see, if there's anything crazy, if there's anything specific, what we have to do, yada yada yada. And it turns out PGL did Dota, right? I mean, a lot of us were at the TFI Hub. It was great, was wonderful, and yeah, they absolutely aced the production at the last Counter-Strike major, and they have a lot of ideas and a lot of things they want to do for this major as well. And there is no way that PGL fails in this epic proportion in any way. They actually try their freaking hardest, and it's just really good to see that Dota is finally getting like some sort of good resemblance of a production. Like Frankfurt was great, right? Frankfurt was a good tournament. It wasn't mind-blowing. It was just really solid from start to finish. It was just a great tournament. You look at it, it was great. Now, if PGL goes all out because they can, dude, like this is going to be blowing people's minds. Just saying. Sure, it's going to work.
Yeah, so I just want to say I don't expect any other tournament to have the level of like there's like something unique about what happened in Shanghai which could only happen in China. And I want to just preface this on the fact that I'm not making a racist claim, and this is something that's actually bothered me a lot. That there was racism in at the Shanghai major. There was like after a certain point of like enough Chinese people screwing up, there were Western people who were like, okay, we can just be dismissive of all Chinese staff, and that's like totally fucked up, I think. There were definitely perfect world staff. There were Mars TV staff who were doing a good job, and like that's like as a matter of fact that's just true. And anyone who tells you differently is just talking shit. So, like, I mean, most people were not even in the production room, so they don't even know. Like, it was me and Barney and Scriff and Webpass, and sometimes Rob and Brian, and sometimes the Valve people, and those are the only people in the production room. But okay, after that preface about not wanting to be racist, stuff that I learned while I was in China, speaking to translators, speaking to Chinese people, and then reading up about it, is that there definitely is a culture in China of like saving face and avoiding shame, which is very, very prevalent to the point that it's almost taken for granted that people even like tell lies. People bend over backwards, sometimes even tell lies, just to protect themselves from humiliation. To the point that you get the situation where there's 15 people working on production of events, something breaks, and everyone's really concerned about showing it's not their fault. And there's hardly anyone like trying to figure out what to fix. And this is something that is not a thing in Western culture, in like American or European culture. It's almost the opposite. Like in Western culture, it's seen as a good thing to own up and say, I fucked up, it's my bad, now let's move forward. It doesn't work like that in China. Like, it's seen as like major weakness for you to be like, yeah, this is on me. And so we'd spend a lot of time with like, literally there'd be a problem and there'd be like any number of different people saying, well, that's not my job, someone else must do it. Like, honestly, there was some of the examples of them are really ridiculous. There was one day we meant to get passwords for the lobbies at the start of the day every day. And there's one day they just forgot to send us the passwords. And so I said to the Mars TV people who were with us in the production room, can we get the passwords, please? And they're like, no, sorry, we don't have them. Only Perfect World have the passwords. So then we like got someone to contact Perfect World, and Perfect World were like, you should get the passwords from Mars TV. And it was like, at some point I realized that there wasn't a whole lot of like responding by figuring out, by like thinking, who has the passwords, how can we get them? There was a whole lot of like, shit, there's a problem. let's like make sure we're not like. Another example, when we first arrived, before the event even started, and this was still Key TV, the first time I went to the production room, the Key TV staff like stood me outside the production room for about 10-15 minutes and wanted it to be very clear that I acknowledged that the equipment wasn't theirs. This is long before we even went in, because they were like so concerned we wouldn't be satisfied with the equipment. They like wouldn't let us see it until we like very clearly stated, yes, we understand it's not your equipment. We won't blame you if it's shit. It was like very, very important to them. And as it turned out, Key TV was shit anyway. But it's true that it wasn't their equipment, and they actually brought in their own equipment, and that's why like it's kind of the context to when they got fired, they took their own equipment, because it is true that like the original equipment wasn't theirs, and they couldn't do stuff they wanted to with it, and they had to bring their own for doing what they wanted to do. But it's also true that a lot of the people working there for Key TV were like, I mean, so it was 15, like we were in this tiny little room doing work that probably should take like 5 or 6 people, and when we were doing with Key TV, there were like 15 people in the room, and like me and Scruff and Webpass would be very distracted. We're trying to watch the game and do obs or stats, and even if we had headphones, there's just so many people, and they'd be watching the game and like talking to each other, and we weren't really sure what everyone's doing, like sitting around, standing around. Eventually, when it changed to Mars TV, there were only like I said, 5 or 6. But I really think that that whole thing with Key TV started off as a bunch of volunteers came. I mean, I'm not sure about the pay issue, if they're paid or not, but a lot of the people working for Key TV at the start, they seem like young students or even kids who are like just excited to be part of a Dota event. And like I would open up the leaderboard in my browser, and like 2 of them would come with their phones and like take photographs of it because they'd never seen the leaderboard before. You know, like, and obviously if you're like someone who's involved in the industry, you'll know what that shit is. You'll be like, oh, it's the MMR leaderboard. So tangent.
But see, and you're making fun of me that I told you that you were actually ranting off of shit, and how you just ranting your ass off, dude. Like, I think I won this. I'm just saying.
I just like to talk. I don't want to call it a rant. See, I think it's like
how was that? Come on, dude. How was that not a rant?
That was a rant.
It was a tangent. No, you
good.
might have noticed me just like smiling in the corner because I am Chinese, and it's like obviously not a like racial property, but I will say it is a very cultural thing. I've definitely seen it in Chinese people, especially people from China. I think it's more common because that's just where the culture is more prevalent. Whereas I grew up in America, so that's not something that I particularly adhere to, but I've definitely seen people do that, and it can be an issue because they want to save face so much that they don't really care about what's going on. They just want to make sure that they are secure. So,
but it's just to be clear, I'm not saying there's this like common Western view of like, wow, that's so backward. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I've gone to lengths to try and like understand where that comes from, and like, you know, I mean, there's certainly plenty of things about Western culture that Chinese people could be like, what the fuck is up with that? That's so, I mean, and there were a lot of things that I experienced in China which I thought were really cool. But in terms of like explanatory value of like why I'm saying certain kinds of issues that came up probably won't come up outside of China, because I think that's in some sense related to like something which is uniquely in Chinese culture, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that I agree that is a thing that is unique and prevalent in Chinese culture. But yeah.
I can't even think about a single thing which is worse than having like a really stressful production when shit doesn't work, and then having people doing the production who aren't 100% committed. Like, this is what I took away from some ESL events I was to, especially the production, like the German guys who are like super seasoned, like they did all the IEM events for like 10 years or something. When shit breaks, someone was always there, like instantly. There was no downtime or something. Like, someone always just instantly like fixed it. That was pretty cool to see, honestly, and that's one of the reasons why, at least the events I was to, like I can only talk about my experience, of course. Like the ESL events were by far like the best organized and the like smoothest running, even though there were definitely some hiccups in like from a technical point. And they just fixed that shit. I don't know. It's you know what's funny though? What I don't understand. I look at Chinese LCS equivalent. I don't know how it's called, and it runs flawlessly. So you would think that there is some resemblance of this cultural thing, right, for the Chinese LCS production, which sometimes puts a wrench in the whole thing, but it doesn't.
In some ways, LCS is already Chinese, right? Because Tencent owns Riot 100%. And
I mean, yeah, of course, but that I mean, Chinese LCS is gonna have a Chinese production crew, right? Makes no sense otherwise.
I mean,
yeah, but it's
go ahead.
it's significant in the sense that like, so another one is like China being communist is like not really true, right? It's like I didn't meet a Chinese person who thinks China's actually communist, right? And so the capitalist incentives that you expect in America or somewhere also work there. And Tencent's like a freaking gigantic company in China. And so if they own some shit, it's a totally different story to like Perfect World's relation to Dota in China. And obviously there's that whole drama about Ruru and Anderson and all that stuff, which I mean, who knows what the truth is.
I mean, that's just rumors.
As far as I know, that we don't have that situation with Tencent and Riot and LCS, so it's, to me, it's like could be an entirely different, like that's exactly my original point. Is like people who think from this event that now we know that Chinese people are just incompetent at running production, or like that's obviously completely ridiculous. There's probably like any number of hundreds of thousands of people in China who could do a good job. But when you end up with people who are like don't know the game or don't even know what they're doing or don't know production, and you have the sort of like Chinese culture saving face stuff, that's when you get to these kinds of issues.
I see, yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess there's just like no foundation of shit to break actually, because they're like so super seasoned and everything is so perfectly laid out. Yeah, good point.
I mean, the point I was going to make is probably the Chinese LCS has a little bit to do with Riot having more control over everything that comes out from League. So that's also something to take into like a factor.
I guess, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of helps.
Yeah, by the way, you said you can't think of a single thing that's worse than being in a production room when there's issues and people aren't committed to fixing them. I was just...
No, I mean, of course, if you think about a surgery, that's a bit worse, right? I mean, but I'm saying about the shit we have actual contact to, right? Are we getting flamed somewhere, or like, dude, come on.
No, it's just the whole time I wanted to be like, because you said that right after I was like, there's bad shit in Western and European culture too, and I just wanted to be like, so you think production issues are worse than like drone strikes? Or
oh, drone strikes. Yeah, I'm sure that's the play stance. I'm sure that's like. Do you want to be American now that Trump's gonna win shit, or like what's the deal here, Scan?
No, I think America. This is exactly my point. It's like for me, it's like hilarious to hear an American person learn about this like saving face thing and being like China's so backward, and I'm like, you're fucking American. Everyone in your country has guns, and you think that's normal? Like,
no, it's not the guns. It's voting for Trump.
It's Trump. I am honestly like desking, face palming so much during this election. Anyways, let's not break into the world of American politics on the show. That's not going to go well. But
we're just happy we're not there. It's fine.
I can't blame you, honestly.
I mean, every country's politics sucks, right? Like every country's government's evil. Like, well, I mean, I'm being flippant, but like, in some way or another, you'll struggle to find someone who lives in a certain country who doesn't have like some serious grievance with their government.
I'm sure North Korea works fine, dude. Alright, let's talk Dota, guys. Come on, like what the fuck's this?
Anyways.
Okay, what's the next topic?
Do we have one? Please?
Do we have another topic, or should we just wing a topic?
Do you have anything you want to talk about? I'm sure we can pull up another topic, but anyone have a rant they would like to go on that they haven't gone on already?
I think God.
I'd like to know if because I was at Starladder with Pimp, but I was just doing panel and he was somewhere separate. But at the major, I kind of like sat with Webbus and Scriff, It was really interesting how I was saying earlier, like Wepas would like flip his shit, and I mean, it's not clear which reactions are right or wrong or anything, but all of us would, me and Scruff or me and Wepas, we'd always be like, this is ridiculous, what the hell's going on? But Wepas would like flip his shit, and Scruff would just kind of like sit calmly. So I'm just, Pimp, do you think, are you gonna flip your shit guy, or are you the...
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that.
What do you think I am?
No, tell me, be honest, because I think you're the flip your shit.
No, I'm okay. So when I do events, I'm somewhat different from when I just like backseat hate, right? Because like I sit here, I see a $3 million tournament being completely dumpstered by some incompetent idiots, and I lose my shit because it reflects bad on everyone in the Dota scene. That's my whole point. Why I actually got so annoyed. You know, if someone pulls a gaming paradise and fucks up their tournament, whatever, I don't give a shit, right? Like they can do that, that's fine. But if someone fails at representing the Dota scene at one of the biggest events of the year, then I flip my shit. And I wouldn't have flipped my shit if I would be there. And I'm super surprised that Weapons and Scriff, or like Weapons in particular, actually got annoyed. Because I was working with him Frankfurt Lab for like 2 weeks, right? Scriff is the most chill dude ever in history of existence.
Yeah, Scriff's very
like
chill.
You could put a gun in his hand and he would like relax and vape. You know, that's what he does, right? And that's fine. That's Griff. And Weapons is also like super chill. I don't know, like I never had any. I think they are like, out of everyone in esports, like I'm so glad I'm an obs, because working with them is really the easiest thing you can actually imagine.
I'm not flaming Weapons. I'm just saying.
No. I'm saying I'm so surprised that he is he actually flipped his shit, because I never thought he could or would. Like I'm genuinely surprised, because you brought it. I was like, what? That's not the Weapons I know. Like,
no, dude,
for example,
he was like probably the angriest of all the talents at that event. He was like,
shit,
what
dude,
the
like,
fuck is this shit? I can't handle this. I mean, there were like. Man. To be fair, he was in the production room, and it's like for the people in the production room, we were much closer to the stuff, and particularly for the people doing obs work, like it affects you very directly. And there was one game where they're trying to like troubleshoot a problem, and they just came and like started plugging stuff into his computer and like unplugging it, and then there'd be like Windows pop-ups like which appear obviously on the stream.
Great stuff.
And he was just like, he was just not happy with that. It was just like. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's for me, there's something kind of like humorous about people getting angry at each other when there's a language barrier, and like no one really knows what anyone's saying to each other. There's like a only Chinese speaking person and an only English speaking person, and they're like mad at each other, but no one knows what. You can't communicate your anger. You just have to like sense the body language or hear the volume.
Like send waves of anger from your body. You know? Yeah.
Honestly, I've never seen Oscar mad in my life. Ever. Not in the slightest.
Have you seen PimpmuckL mad?
Are you shitting me? Of course.
Yeah. Do you want an answer to that question?
Do you think that madness can help a good observer to observe well?
Yes, it can. If you're it's pretty simple actually. If you're invested onto something and you care about the product and you get annoyed by some other people failing on the product when you're doing a really bang up job or like trying to do a good job, then you get mad at the person. And if you're smart, you're not gonna tell the person because you're still in this production environment, and you're not gonna do good when you yell at someone, right? Either it's constructive and you know the person can take the constructive criticism, or not. And most of the time it's not. Especially with people you never worked on. Like if I would do it if there would be something breaking at ESL Frankfurt or something, like I know the guys there, I can talk to them. I'm like, hey guys, like this is shit. This has to be fixed like right now. Then I know that's gonna work. If I'm doing that with like people I don't know, and I'm not gonna do that because they might get annoyed and just like flip their shit or something. Like it's just not happening. But in general, if you're invested and you get mad at someone, you want to prove that you're doing the good job while this guy's fucking up. So you're actually really invested in doing an even better job now. That's my experience at least. Like if I'm annoyed at something, I tend to try super hard, like mega hard.
See, I think there's like a cultural thing here between you and me as well, because like, I mean, I'm just gonna guess because of the stereotypes. Like you lived in Germany your whole life, right? And like shit in Germany like just works and it's efficient and it's good, right? I lived in South Africa my whole life, and like there's always problems. Like nothing works completely. Like most things kind of work, but so like I get to the Shanghai major and there's problems, and I'm like, okay, so what? Like whatever. We can keep doing our thing. Like there's problems. That's there's problems that are just like part of life. Like they keep things interesting, and so it's almost like, to me, what I'm used to is like the people in South Africa who complain about stuff like that are actually really like entitled, privileged people. And I'm just like, dude, you're like part of this too. Let's just fix this. So that's kind of like where I come from. That's the context I come from, and I feel like probably you're more used to a context where like stuff is meant to work, and so it's actually quite infuriating when it doesn't.
You know, it's mostly the context though. Like if this would have been any other tournament, right? Even if run by some big ass company, like I'd say it would be a DreamHack event or something. Like, okay, you know, shit broke, shit happens. That's it. Like this is how life goes, right? I mean, okay, what can we all do to help it? Everyone tries their best, and the thing is fixed at the next day, right? But this is a fucking major. This is not a tournament. This is the tournament of the season. Like I could be mad right now. Like in fact, I am mad. Like just think about this for a second. You have Dota. You have this gigantic. I'm mad at Perfect World. You have this gigantic
why not Valve?
game. Why not Valve?
Yeah, why not
Because
Valve?
Valve already showed that they can run shit, and they don't need to be super close to someone to run that shit. ESL Frankfurt was fine. Why? Because ESL actually can press buttons. It's crazy. You know?
So Valve get credit for hiring ESL when they do a good job, but they don't get blamed for hiring Perfect World when they do a bad job.
They don't get blamed. No. They do not get blamed for hiring anyone because they expect the production company to deliver the promises. Do you think Perfect World went to them, hey guys, by the way, you know, for your mate in Shanghai, we're just all gonna fuck up? And Valve was like, yeah, sounds great, guys. Let's do it like this. Now, of course not.
What, so they just absolved of responsibility? Like that's like, so if I hire like you to, I don't know, be my doctor, and then like I die because you're a fucking terrible doctor, then I have no responsibility in that because I hired like some random dude to be a doctor.
But you wouldn't hire me, but you would hire the guy who performed 2 surgeries already, one of which was pretty good. And then
what?
Yes, they did DAC. DAC wasn't good, but it was
Perfect World didn't actually do DAC. Mars TV did DAC. That's like, everyone knows that, right?
Yeah, fine.
Perfect World did nothing.
Look, but that's a difference, right? Because Valve goes to Perfect World. Perfect World did DAC in some way, shape, or form, and then suddenly they completely go full greed mode. If it would have been a second DAC, no one would even care. Like, it would have been like some shitty production, some shit would have like delayed a lot of stuff, but everyone would be like, you know, this is just China. Because that's literally what Charlie said, you know, just don't expect a great tournament. It's going to be China, and that's what everyone does. And it's still it still was worse than that.
Let's mix things up. I can tell you for a fact, I won't reveal my sources, but I can tell you for a fact that Valve were notified months before the major that Perfect World were going to use Key TV, and that was a terrible idea. People who had been at Nanyang said to Valve, Key TV is involved, you need to step in, Key TV are terrible.
Okay,
and Valve did not step
I didn't have that information.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's obvious that Valve fucked up.
The reason I'm actually asking about this angle is because my experience at the major, it's very interesting. Like, everyone's talking about problems and like how to fix things or whatever, but nobody actually wants to criticize Valve. Because everyone's like super conscious of the fact that the way the industry works, you don't have like some contract to like, you're gonna go to this event. It's just like, we're all just hoping Valve will invite us to the next event. And so there's this like extraordinary power that Valve has over people. Like, no matter how much they fuck up, you're not going to say too much about it. And, like, I think it's a bit messed up because, like,
super messed up.
Yeah.
Of course.
For the record, like, all the Valve people at the event, there were 3 of them, Bruno, Tad, and Sharon. They were all great. Like, I really liked working with them and talking to them. But that's, like, independent of the fact that Valve had a lot of decision-making power in, like, setting up the event. And there's a lot of stuff that, when we talk about, like, failure to prepare, and I think you only go so far with like, oh, they just expected Perfect World to be competent in every way and didn't need to check anything. Like, I don't feel like that's, I don't know, that to me that sounds like a cop out of a defense.
Okay, sure, but then again, you didn't, like, you have more information than I have, because I wasn't at the event and I had no idea that Valve actually knew about Key TV at first. It should have been very obvious that after fucking up Nanyang so hard, that Key TV shouldn't have had any other chance whatsoever ever again at a Dota event of this size. They should have gotten a second Nanyang, but not.
Even if I didn't know, like, well, why are you're blaming Perfect World for hiring Key TV, but you weren't blaming Valve for hiring Perfect World? Like, what's the difference?
The difference is that I think it's very obvious that Valve wants to appeal to Perfect World in a way that they're their Chinese distributor. Right?
Yeah, but that's
You don't want to.
that's explaining why they hire him. That's not that's not defending. That's not justifying it. That's just like giving an explanation for it.
No, but if you don't do that, then Perfect World could have said, "All right, fuck you. We're not gonna sell your game anymore." Like shit like this. You don't know the specifics. I don't know the specifics. But the way Chinese business works, it looks like the Chinese partner has a ton of leverage over the product that gets sold, over the company that sells their own product in China, like over your company as Chinese business. You know, there is a lot more to that story than just Valve being fucking retards and not acknowledging the fact that KTV is a shit company.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't trust that Valve deliberately said, all right, KTV just fucked up the whole fucking tournament in Nanyang. Now let's hire them again. That isn't Valve. Come on, man. Like, this can't be Valve.
I
Valve
mean,
knows
for a fact, more than one person like deliberately reached out to them and warned them. I know that. I mean, this was discussed with me in person. I'm not gonna like rat on people who probably don't want it, but like I just thought it was a general principle that when a big company hires someone and they do a bad job, the company is also responsible. Like it's not just the person who did a bad job. It's like
if they knew Perfect World wanted to use KeyTV, then of course they are responsible. There is no question about that. What I'm saying is there's definitely another side of the story. There's definitely some more things which Valve also involved in completely going ham on Perfect World. You know, and maybe not doing that. Maybe they thought, you know, maybe it's going to be all right. Maybe they changed. Maybe they did the last 2 days in Nanyang and they were fine. Maybe this is going to be how it all starts. You know, if only the last 2 days in Nanyang are what counts, maybe it would have been fine. You know, you don't know. Like I don't think we can just sit on Valve's ass and be like, hey, you guys actually fucked up because we don't know shit.
Yeah,
but what we know is that, oh, like okay, what we don't know, but what is rumored numerous times and what looks to be true is that Perfect World has some very greedy executives, and these greedy fucks definitely fucked up in a like much bigger fashion than Valve in any way. You know, that's my grief, because they lowballed everyone and then they pulled this bullshit with Marriott, which I don't know if it's true. I don't care if it's true. Just the whole idea that it can be true is so infuriating to me. That's beyond bullshit, and that's my personal grief for that. You know, I don't know if Valve could have made much better decisions. Possibly so. Yeah, I mean, if that's definitely true that KTV actually was known to be the tournament, the production guys behind the English stream, someone should have rang a bell. Someone should have, hey guys, you need someone to interface between that. Why don't you bring up, an English production crew? Like, what's happening with that? Of course, but then again, we don't know the specifics. I don't think we can just go out guns blazing and like crucify Valve for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing we don't know a lot about what happened, but
but we don't. This is not, again, the we don't know defense only goes so far because we use it selectively. Like everyone, you'll hear people over and over saying we don't know when it comes to should we criticize Valve. When it comes to should we criticize someone else, there's never like when there's a shit when like Moonduck or BTS or Join Dota have a shit event, we criticize them. We don't say we don't know what's going on there. Like, so I mean, look. Understandably, we all want to go to Valve events, and the ridiculous ecosystem has it such that you have to like somehow say nice things about Valve to be invited to the events. I don't know if that's actually true. To be honest, like I think that people work at Valve are human beings and understand that like they can be criticized and still recognize that your work's good. But I'm not trying to like pin the whole event on Valve. Even I'm just like there's something really screwed up about criticism going to everyone but Valve. And the only thing that the community has criticized Valve for is firing James, which is like it's like the most ridiculous thing in the world to like.
The thing is,
this is all on them, but nothing else is.
You just have to think about what the community does. They see even less than what people like. You were there at the event. You have all this inside information which I don't even have, and I want to say like somewhat connected in the scene, and I know more than the average Joe who reads Reddit or posts shit on Twitter or whatever, like or reads Twitter. So just obviously, so if I'm super hesitant to like flame Valve openly or in any way at all, because I legitimately don't think that everything I know justifies that I'm flaming Valve, then all the other guys who actually have no idea whatsoever, then they have less even to fall back on. Like, of course, Valve should be criticized. I totally agree with you. We should have some, like, that talent can't criticize Valve openly is super fucked up. It makes for bad product.
I mean, it's their $3 million event.
But I don't know, man.
Like, a company hosts like a really huge, lots of money event. If there's problems with the event, some of the responsibility is theirs. Like,
Sure, of course. I didn't deny that. I'm saying the majority of actually failing the event and making it as bad as it is not on Valve but on Perfect World. Because that you build booths which smell with freaking glue or whatever and have EE wipe his tears off all the time. I mean, come on, how far can you control shit as Valve? Like, what the fuck? That's you shouldn't use like freaking Walmart glue for that. Just I don't know. I don't think you can fault Valve for everything. They definitely have a lot of responsibility for the whole package, for the whole product. I totally agree on that.
Sure, it's like obviously you're not going to place all of the blame on one person, but it's abstaining Valve from any of it. That shouldn't happen, I guess.
I don't know. I agree.
If I had a child and I like trusted some person to take care of them, and then my child got abducted, I would feel like part of the responsibility is mine because I decided to trust that person. But it's just like that's how trust works. You decide to trust someone, and sometimes you make a bad decision, and when you do, then that's on you. Like it turns out you shouldn't have trusted that person. You should have like done more to like give them incentives to do a good job, or you should have done more research to like that's. But I mean, look, we're going in circles here. You guys are kind of agreeing with my bottom line, right? So it's
yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's obvious that on this magnitude, on this scale, there's got to be a ton of people who actually didn't really deliver what they were supposed to do in a way. It's good though that Valve is switching around like 180 degrees. Suddenly, communication. I mean, I wouldn't call firing someone and calling them an ass communication in the first place, but whatever. That's pretty much a crazy amount of communication from Valve, right?
It's something. It's some amount of communication.
Yeah, it's some sort of, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, they're going to be more involved with PGL, although I don't see how they would need someone to be more involved. What I like, however, is that maybe that means that someone is actually closer connected to the production guys. Because that's like, whenever you work with Valve, and I did that in a sense that, of course, I was running Captain Stuff 3. It's really hard to get anyone on Valve to listen to your shit. Like, really fucking hard. Now, if that was the same case for ESL Frankfurt, like ESL in general, I can definitely understand why there was, like, last year or something, there wasn't even a ticket for ESL New York for a while and that shit. And that was freaking ESL. Like, you would think that this big of a company knows how to actually write emails and shit, right? It's not that hard. You, like, click on new email and you type in Valve software and then you send it off. It shouldn't be that hard. But there was like an apparent issue with the communication in the first place, and I like that Valve acknowledges that. They had the inherent big flawed system of the open circuit, which they then addressed. And now if they actually address this the same way, of course it's going to look super bad for the few months here where everyone still remembers the Shanghai major bullshit. But maybe it's going to, help grow the scene in a way that doesn't look apparent on the first view. I don't know. That's my hope. I have no fucking idea.
So we are reaching the end of the show. I had one last question that I thought of way long ago, and then we went on a different tangent. But I mean the Dota community in general got a lot of attention following James being fired and KeyTV being fired, just everywhere. I mean, like, I saw it trending on my Facebook, which was probably the first time I've ever seen Dota there. Do you think that the scene is going to have to recover from this in any way? Or do you think we'll be able to bounce back pretty quickly? Like, we got a lot of like the Dota scene got a lot of very negative attention, I would say, from it all being about James being fired.
I mean, it depends. Like, who do you mean? From Reddit, sure, but I think there's a very good chance that someone who's looking to invest lots of money in the Dota scene might have seen that as a positive thing to fire James. It's not clear to me. If you're talking about the overall community, like this community is like pretty damn fickle. That's what I'm talking about. Like tomorrow, like a professional player or like some famous talent person says something, and then suddenly that's the only thing they can think about or talk about. And by the time we get to the next major, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it needs to have any kind of lasting effect.
I agree. I don't know. Honestly, I don't see how this is actually a big deal in the sense that it's negative. it's publicity for the Dota scene. It's publicity for esports in general, that there is some shit happening. People who actually had no idea suddenly see drama, and of course it isn't perfect if you get like connected to or like introduced to esports in this way, but at least you see that there is something there, right? So yeah, I don't think it's bad per se. I just personally, I kind of respect James in a way that whenever I did something with it, it was always kind of pleasant, and I was surprised to see this decision. Of course, I can kind of understand some of it. I still don't understand everything of it because there was no official statement why he actually got let go. But I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Right. So there is a tradition on the Campfire that when we wrap up, we tell our origin stories of how we got into Dota or gaming in general. But PimpmuckL has already been on the show, which means he's already told his origin story. So he can either tell it again or tell us, which is our backup, your origin of your gamer tag. But I've already told my origin story. So let's start with Scant.
Wait. So this is how I got into gaming?
Yeah, like how did you get into Dota? How did you get into gaming? What was your first game? Something like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and be quick about this. But basically, when I was in preschool, there was this thing where like people's parents should like come to preschool and do something. And my mom, her thing was she came to preschool and taught everyone how to play chess. So we were playing chess when I was like really young, like 4 years old or something. I played provincially and like was quite good. My brothers and I, we played a lot of chess. At some point, chess became Magic cards, Magic the Gathering. And at some point, we were playing like Magic tournaments at a place where there was like an internet cafe. And then we started playing like Warcraft 3 and custom games. There was especially this one called Tides of Blood. It was really cool. Similar setup to Dota. It's basically like one of the old MOBAs. And then when I was like, I don't know, 17 or something, we got internet. That must be like 2004, 2005. And then I was kind of like, Dota. So I've, since I got the internet, I've like spent most of my time in my waking life playing Dota and watching Dota and thinking about Dota and writing and casting and all that other stuff.
Nice. So how about you, Pimp?
So my name comes from a German cartoon series called PimpmuckL. And PimpmuckL was a like this big of a kobold, and he had like red hair, lives with a old dude called Meister Eder, and he could like go invis and like jump around, and in general he had like a lot of shit which he just did, and he like fucked around with people and stuff. It was super fun to watch. And eventually my viewing habits from this cartoon series changed to something else, and then something else later, which was mostly like Pimp My Ride and shit. Like MTV was a hot thing. So from Pimp My Ride and the PimpmuckL, I came to PimpmuckL. It's not offensive, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I know
people call you
Scans,
Pimp for short.
really doesn't matter.
They do, so. Yeah.
So how do you like being identified as Pimp?
Dude. Just saying. Just look at me.
What are your thoughts on prostitution? You know that in at the Pullman in Shanghai, like I think I got offered prostitutes like almost every day. Like I don't know, I think they see like a white person come out of a fancy hotel, and there's like some pimp on the road comes up to you and just asks you if you want a girl massage. And like sure. It's a guy that can't really speak much English, so he just comes up to you and he literally says girl massage, and you're like, well, I mean, some people probably said yes, but I didn't say yes. Just I have a girlfriend, but otherwise might have tried it out. Yeah, I'm not. I guess now you know how I feel about prostitution.
I mean, I could go on a lot of social things to rant, but
before we derail further, I'll go ahead and drop my origin.
Derail the outro.
More derailing. I didn't drop my gamer tag origin story, which is actually fairly boring. Ames is short for amethyst. I don't know why so many people ask me about this, but it was supposed to be Royal Amethyst, and it was too long for Battle.net. And so I was like, well, we're going with Ames, and that is where my tag comes from.
Wow, that's incredible. I actually was really confused for a long time because I was like, I thought your name is Amy and your name is Tiffany. And I was like, well, how does that work? Like, because if your name's Tiffany, why do you have Amy in your... Okay. So amethyst, that's like that purple gem, right?
Yeah. It is. It's okay.
Wait, isn't that the one that does minus armor in GemTD?
Yeah, that's the one.
Fuck yeah.
Do you name yourself After
Weapons would be proud.
MTD.
Weapons would be proud, I'm sure.
I mean, Ian told me from Daily Dot. He told me for the longest time he thought my last name was Ames, and that's why it was my part of my tag, which is not. But
That's pretty cool. Hey guys, I'm the king here.
I'm royal, anyways.
Bad.
So that wraps up this week's Campfire. Thanks a lot to our guests, Scant and PimpmuckL. Do you have any shout-outs you'd like to give before we get off? You can plug whatever you want.
Shout out to PGL, my boys.
Okay, I will in direct competition to the shout out to PGL. I will shout out to Peter Zhang, who works for Perfect World, who did a really good job at the Shanghai Major. The only person I can identify specifically who definitely did a great job from Perfect World, and all the not all, most of the translators. Who I spent a lot of time talking to the translators. Well, it's like I hang out with some more than others, and there were some of them who like didn't get passes, so couldn't do much. But the translators were like actually involved, worked really, really hard, and as it happens, I happen to know that they're like, I think they're horribly underpaid and like get paid a lot less than everyone else, and that's ridiculous. And I think that their roles are actually significant, and I think they should get more like love from the community, and not just like people who are like popular. Like the translators who do a good job should get more respect for doing a good job.
Sure. Well, that does wrap up this week's Campfire. Catch us next week, probably at the normal time, which is 8 p.m. Central. But thanks again to Scant and Pip for coming on. VOD will be uploaded soon, and see you guys next week.